It all started like an ordinary evening. I was slouched on the couch in our house just outside Tulsa, Oklahoma, mindlessly scrolling through my phone. The TV was on in the background, some reality show I wasn't even watching, just playing for the noise. It was already past midnight, the kind of late where the silence in the house starts to feel heavy, where you begin noticing little creaks in the floor or the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I was alone, and I should have been used to that by now. Emma had been on a business trip for the past 3 days. Her job with a pharmaceutical company demanded travel, nothing unusual. She'd fly out, meet with investors or clients, sometimes attend conferences. It was part of the deal. And for the most part, I trusted her. We'd been together for 5 years, married for 3. We'd built a life together, quiet, stable, dependable. Or so I thought. That trip, though, something about it felt different. Her messages had been strangely upbeat. Too upbeat. Every text she sent was cheerful, filled with memes and emojis and jokes that sounded like they were written by someone trying to prove they were having the time of their life. Normally, when she traveled, she'd text in short, tired sentences. Long day or flight delayed again. This time, it was met the coolest group at dinner, grinning face with smiling eyes, or OMG, I have to tell you this hilarious thing later, LOL. Every message felt like it was being curated. Like it wasn't just for me. I remember one evening during her trip when I FaceTimed her. She answered but didn't turn on the camera right away. Said she was in bed, didn't want to wake her roommate. I didn't push. I told myself it was fine. But even through the audio, I could hear something strange in her voice. Like a giggle that didn't belong in a hotel room after midnight. Like a muffled sound in the background she pretended not to notice. I shook the thought out of my head. I wasn't going to be that guy. The paranoid husband. We weren't like that. I was halfway through a mindless YouTube rabbit hole when I heard it. The gate creaked open. It wasn't loud, but I knew the sound well. The old iron hinges always groaned when the latch popped open. Then headlights briefly lit up the window as a car pulled into the driveway. My stomach tensed automatically, the way it always did when something interrupted the silence. A moment later, I heard the car door shut, then the trunk. The soft thud of a suitcase being wheeled up the walkway. Emma was back. I stood up slowly, stretching out my back as I walked to the front door, just in time to hear her key in the lock. The door swung open, and she stepped inside. She was glowing. I don't mean that in a metaphorical, happy to be home kind of way. I mean she literally looked like she had just come from a photo shoot. Her skin had a shine to it, her hair was neatly pulled back, her makeup still fresh like it hadn't been worn for more than an hour. She wasn't wearing her usual travel clothes either. No sweats or hoodie, just a sleek black blouse tucked into tailored jeans with a jacket slung over her arm. "Hey babe," she said casually, not even looking up from her phone. "Miss me?" "Of course," I said, watching her carefully. She laughed, not at me, but at something on her screen, and kept typing. Her fingers moved quickly, confidently, like she was mid-conversation. Then she walked right past me, rolling her suitcase toward the bedroom, leaving behind a faint trail of expensive perfume. One she usually saved for date nights or company parties. I didn't follow her right away. I just stood there in the hallway, listening to her heels click softly against the wood floor as she disappeared down the hall. A minute passed. Then, too. Something wasn't right. I finally walked to the living room window and looked outside. Her rental car was still parked at an angle, like she'd pulled in fast. The engine was still ticking as it cooled. I turned and looked down the hallway again. No sound. No suitcase being unpacked. No bathroom running. I walked slowly to the bedroom. The door was cracked open, and I heard her voice, soft, hurried, whispering. No, not now," she said in a hushed tone. "I just got in, yeah, just wait." My chest tightened. I pushed the door a little wider. She was standing by the bed, holding her phone in one hand and a small piece of paper in the other. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, and for a second she looked like a teenager caught sneaking back in past curfew. She shoved the paper into the nightstand drawer as soon as she noticed me. "Everything okay?" I asked. She jumped slightly and plastered on a smile. "Yeah, just tired." I nodded slowly, pretending to buy it. "Need help unpacking?" "No, I got it," she said quickly. "Go relax. I'll be out in a bit." I left the room, but my mind was anything but relaxed. I sat back on the couch, gripping the armrest, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. That wasn't Emma. At least, not the version of her I knew. The way she avoided eye contact. The urgency in her voice. The way she practically sprinted to her phone the moment she walked in the door. And that paper. What was on it? The minutes dragged on. I heard the shower start. The white noise of water masked everything else. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something I couldn't yet see but could definitely feel. That night, as I lay in bed next to her, she fell asleep quickly, back turned, phone on silent, facing down. I stared at the ceiling, her soft breathing beside me doing nothing to calm the storm in my chest. It had all started like an ordinary evening, but I could feel it in my bones. Something was ending. Or maybe, just maybe, something was beginning. The next morning, I woke up before Emma. Not on purpose, it just happened. The sunlight was peeking through the blinds, cutting across the floor in those soft golden beams that usually made our bedroom feel warm and calm. But not that morning. That morning, the air felt heavy. I turned my head slowly and looked at her. She was curled up on her side, breathing softly, phone still clutched in her hand. Not charging. Just there. Like it needed to be near her. Even in sleep. I didn't touch it. I could've. It would've been easy. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I got up, went to the kitchen, and made coffee. Our dog, Cooper, trailed behind me, yawning and stretching like his little world was still perfect. I stood by the window, sipping from my mug, watching the tree outside sway gently in the breeze. I kept trying to talk myself down. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was letting my imagination run wild. But no matter how I spun it, I couldn't shake that image from the night before, Emma whispering, holding that paper, freezing when she saw me like I had walked in on a crime. She came out an hour later, still in her robe, looking normal. But too normal. Hair brushed, smile on, that usual morning wife performance dialed up just a notch too high. "Hey babe," she said, walking over to kiss my cheek. "Thanks for the coffee." "Anytime," I replied, I scanning her face. We sat at the kitchen table. She scrolled through her phone as she sipped her coffee, laughing occasionally at something I couldn't see. When I asked what was so funny, she just shook her head. "Just a dumb meme Kelly sent," she said. Kelly, her coworker. The same one she always used as a shield when she didn't want to explain where she was. I nodded but said nothing. I watched her thumb move across the screen with precision, switching apps like second nature. Her eyes flicked up at me only once, just long enough to confirm I wasn't looking at her phone. Then back down. "You sleep okay?" she asked. "Yeah. You." She hesitated, barely noticeable. "Like a rock." "Liar." I kept my tone light. "You were whispering in your sleep. Saying something about not now." She froze mid-sip. "What?" "Yeah." Said it a couple times. No, not now." "Weird dream." She blinked, then chuckled awkwardly. "Wow. Yeah, I guess. I don't remember. Probably just jet lag messing with me." "Must have been some dream," I said. She shrugged and stood to put her mug in the sink. "You know how my brain is when I travel. Total mush." She turned on the faucet like that would end the conversation. But it didn't. Not for me. That whole day I watched her closely. She was fidgety. Not in the usual, post-travel tired kind of way, but like she was waiting for something. Checking her phone constantly. And not just unlocking and peeking, actually reading, typing, erasing. Her thumb was a blur. Every time she caught me looking, she'd flip the phone face down on the counter or fake a stretch. She laughed more than usual too. Not at my jokes. Not at anything I said. But at her phone. At these little silent conversations I wasn't a part of. That laugh, it was airy, high-pitched, nervous almost. Not her laugh. And then, just after lunch, I made a joke. We were folding laundry, standing side by side in the hallway, and I said, "You know, maybe I should send you on more business trips if they put you in such a good mood." She flinched. I mean, physically flinched. Her whole body tensed for a split second before she forced out a chuckle. "Yeah, maybe," she said quickly, tossing a pair of socks into the basket like it was suddenly urgent. I didn't press. I just nodded. "You're glowing lately." That made her pause. She looked at me, eyes wide for a split second before she smiled. "Just happy to be home." Happy to be home. But everything in her body said otherwise. She didn't touch me unless I initiated it. She didn't ask about my week, didn't mention the show we used to watch together. She just went through the motions. Later that afternoon, I was in the garage fixing the latch on the side door when I realized her car trunk was still slightly open. I thought she'd unpacked everything the night before. Curious, I lifted it and peeked in. Empty except for a small, crumpled shopping bag wedged in the corner. No store name, no receipt, just the kind of bag you'd get from a boutique or one of those downtown shops she always said were too overpriced for what they offer. I didn't touch it. I wasn't ready for what that bag might hold. That evening we watched TV together, or pretended to. She sat next to me on the couch but leaned ever so slightly away, like my arm resting behind her was a suggestion, not an invitation. Every few minutes her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She'd glance at it, then at me, then casually pick it up and walk to the kitchen under the excuse of grabbing water. It happened 3 times. By the third, I was gripping the couch cushions so hard my knuckles went white. Around 10 p.m., she said she was going to bed early. Claimed the jet lag was hitting her hard. I nodded, kissed her forehead, and told her I'd join her soon. She lingered in the doorway a second too long, like she was debating whether to say something. Then she vanished down the hallway. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. Quietly. The bedroom door was slightly open. I could hear her pacing. Whispering. My heart pounded as I moved closer. "Stop texting me," she hissed. "No," I said, "not now." "You can't, he's in the house." She wasn't on speakerphone. It was a voice message. WhatsApp or Telegram maybe. Some app that deletes things after a while. Then there was silence. I peeked inside. She was standing by the dresser holding that same piece of paper from last night. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were locked on it like it was a bomb. Her lips moved but no sound came out. Her mouth formed the words, "What have I done?" just before she stuffed the paper back into her pocket and sat on the edge of the bed, head in her hands. That moment, it broke something inside me. Not just because I saw fear on her face, but because I realized it wasn't fear of being caught. It was fear of losing whatever she had just come back from. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers. The phone flipped face down every time I walked into a room. The fake laughs and how she barely touched me now, not even a hand on my shoulder or a casual brush of the arm. Something had changed. She had changed. I knew I couldn't just ask. Whatever this was, she wasn't going to confess to it. I had to find out for myself. It started with the suitcase. She had left it by the bedroom closet, unopened for 2 whole days, unusual for Emma, who was always borderline obsessive about putting things back where they belonged. I waited until she stepped out for a quick run to the store on Sunday afternoon. As soon as I heard her car back out of the driveway, I went into the bedroom and knelt in front of her suitcase. My hands trembled as I unzipped it. Inside were clothes folded too neatly, like someone had repacked it carefully. I dug through them slowly, searching for anything out of place. At first, nothing. Just the usual pants, blouses, toiletries. Then I found it. Under a stack of sweaters, tucked deep into one of the zip compartments, was a small black gift box. I held it in my palm for a long moment, my chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. The lid lifted with barely any resistance. Inside was a matching lingerie set, delicate, black lace, tags still attached. And underneath it, a card. I didn't want to read it. I wanted to throw it across the room. But my hand moved on its own. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, and it read, "For that night when we're finally alone. Can't stop thinking about you." No name. No signature. But it didn't matter. That sentence hit me like a freight train. Finally alone. As if they'd been waiting. Planning. Like I was the only thing standing in the way of something inevitable. I sat there, numb, the gift box still open on my lap, my heart pounding in my ears. Then something in me snapped into focus. I stood, grabbed my laptop from the nightstand, and opened up the portal to our shared mobile account. Emma and I had bundled our phone plans years ago, joint account, same billing. I typed in the login info and pulled up the activity log. And there it was. Dozens of calls to the same number. At first I thought maybe it was work, she was a manager, maybe she had to talk to someone on her team. But the frequency was too much. Sometimes 3 for calls a day. Some were over an hour long. And the times, always at night. Always after I'd gone to bed or left for the gym. I copied the number and plugged it into a reverse lookup. Mark Banks. I had never heard of him. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Who was Mark Banks? Emma came home about 15 minutes later. I had just finished memorizing the last 4 digits of the phone number when I heard her car pull in. I closed the laptop, shoved the gift box back into the suitcase, and zipped it up. She walked in with a grocery bag and an awkward smile. "Forgot the almond milk," she said with a shrug. I smiled back. "No worries. It happens." She kissed me on the cheek and headed to the kitchen. I didn't ask where else she'd gone. I didn't tell her what I'd seen. That night, after she fell asleep, I did what I never thought I'd do. I unlocked her phone. The password was still the same, our wedding date. A small part of me hoped I'd find nothing. That maybe the lingerie was some weird misguided surprise. That Mark was a colleague and the messages were innocent. That the card was misinterpreted. That I was spiraling into paranoia. But the moment I opened her messages, I knew I wasn't. There it was, his name. Mark Banks. Right at the top of her most recent chats. I tapped the thread. Photos. Messages. Voice notes. I felt like I was reading a version of her I had never met before. There were texts about hotel nights. Private jokes. Inside references to places I'd never been. The in asterisk Macy between them was undeniable. Then I saw the pictures. Selfies from hotel rooms. One of them lying in bed. Another of her in that same lingerie, worn now with the tag cut off. My hands went cold. But what gutted me wasn't even the cheating. It was what she said about me. Buried between flirtatious messages was one that read, "He's become a burden I didn't sign up for. Sometimes I just want to disappear." I stared at that line for a long time. A burden. That was how she saw me. Not a partner. Not a husband. A weight she carried reluctantly. Something she regretted. The betrayal didn't even sting as much as that one message. I could almost hear her voice saying it, cold and detached. A woman who once held my face and said, "You're my home," now talking about me like I was a cage she couldn't wait to escape. I put the phone down, sat back in bed, and stared at the ceiling while she slept peacefully beside me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't shake her awake and demand answers. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and felt something in me go still. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying everything. The suitcase. The card. The phone logs. Her laugh in the kitchen. Her casual kiss hello. It was all a performance. And I had been the audience of a lie. The next morning, she acted like everything was normal. She made pancakes. She told me about a podcast she started on the plane. She even kissed my neck when she passed by my chair. But every gesture now felt hollow. Like a mask. Like muscle memory. I nodded. Smiled. Played along. But inside, I was already planning my next move. The thing is, I didn't explode. Not the next day, not the one after that. Somehow I stayed calm. Controlled. Like the chaos inside me had frozen over into something cold and quiet. There was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation. Just silence. I went through the motions of a regular week, waking up, brushing my teeth next to her, pouring coffee into her favorite travel mug while she texted someone who wasn't me. And she had no idea. That was the part that really got to me. How easily she could keep smiling. How practiced she was at slipping back into our life like she hadn't just thrown it off a cliff. But I wasn't about to scream. Screaming would make it easier for her to turn me into the villain. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. No, I wanted truth. Proof. And then consequences. So I made a call. His name was Jake Merriman. We had gone to college together. He used to be this goofy guy who always showed up late to class, but he had a way of reading people. After college, he went into law enforcement, then private investigation. We hadn't spoken in years, but he picked up on the first ring. "Jake? It's me, Adam." There was a pause. Then a chuckle. "Well, I'll be damned. What's it been, 10 years? You good?" I didn't waste time. "I need your help. And it's not small." Another pause. Then his tone shifted. Professional. Calm. "Tell me everything." I told him about Emma. The suitcase. The card. The texts. I sent him *TS message logs, the number for Mark Banks, dates of Emma's last few business trips. I told him about the lingerie, the photos, even the moment I read the line about me being a burden. Jake didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he exhaled through the phone. "She's deep in it," he said. "You were right to call. I'll look into the guy, Mark Banks, and everything surrounding those dates. Give me a few days." "Don't tell anyone," I said. "I need to keep this under wraps until I know everything." "You have my word." I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. I just opened a door I couldn't close. But strangely, I felt better. There was power in knowing I wasn't going to be blindsided anymore. Power in gathering facts. In taking control. From that point on, I played the role of loving husband like I was auditioning for a movie. I laughed at her stories. I texted her cute gifts during the day. I kissed her goodnight. She never once suspected. That week, we had dinner with her parents. She held my hand under the table and smiled while her mom asked if we were thinking about taking a trip for our anniversary. I said maybe somewhere quiet. She beamed. Later that night, we watched a movie on the couch. She snuggled against me, her head on my shoulder as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Because now every time she touched me, every time she smiled or laughed or pretended to be present, I saw the truth behind it. I saw Mark. I saw her messages. I saw the version of me she described when I wasn't around. The burden. The man she didn't sign up for. And I smiled back. 3 days later, Jay called. "Can you meet me?" I drove an hour outside the city to a rundown roadside motel. Not the kind of place you'd expect a formal sit-down. But Jake said it was discreet and that was all I cared about. He was waiting in room 212, dressed in jeans and a flannel, sitting at a small desk with a laptop and a folder. "You might want to sit down," he said. I did. He slid the folder across the table. Inside were printed **TS of travel confirmations. plane tickets, hotel bookings, 2 names, Emma Carter and Mark Banks, all under one reservation. For the past 3 months, every business trip she had taken lined up with Mark's travel. Every one. They'd stayed in the same hotels, used the same flight itineraries. There were timestamps, surveillance photos. One showed them at a hotel in Denver, walking through the lobby with coffees in hand, their heads close together. Another showed them by a rental car in Dallas, laughing. A third showed them checking in at a spa hotel in Santa Fe. Jake opened his laptop and clicked play on a muted video. Security footage. Emma and Mark, holding hands in a hotel hallway. Then kissing. Then disappearing into a room. I sat in silence. Jake didn't say anything until the video ended. And this, he said, flipping to the last page of the folder, is their next trip. A booking confirmation. A long weekend in Savannah. A spa resort. 2 names again. 2 weeks from now. Why Savannah? I muttered, mostly to myself. Jake shrugged. Quiet. Romantic. Far enough from home that no one would notice. I nodded slowly. She was planning to disappear with him. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I closed the folder and exhaled slowly. It was all real. Every suspicion. Every gut feeling. And now I had evidence. Dates. Places. Pictures. Proof. Thanks, I said, standing. Adam, Jake said, grabbing my shoulder, I've seen a lot of things in this job. People handle this kind of betrayal in all sorts of ways. You have every right to be angry. Just promise me you won't do anything stupid. I looked at him and nodded. Don't worry. I've already done my yelling. Now I'm planning. As I drove home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream into the steering wheel or punch the dashboard. I just drove, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Back at the house, Emma greeted me with a kiss and asked if I wanted to order Thai. I said sure. She picked the movie. We sat together on the couch and laughed at a dumb comedy. And I smiled. Because now I wasn't just watching her. I was watching the end begin. I waited until the night before their trip. 2 weeks passed like slow dripping molasses. I kept my mask on the entire time, smiling, laughing, being the attentive husband she thought I used to be. It was exhausting. Every goodnight kiss, every innocent "how was your day?" felt like acting in a play I never auditioned for. But I needed her to believe I was blind. I needed her to walk confidently into her mistake. And she did. Over those days, I watched her prepare for the trip without knowing I knew. I saw her delete messages, clear browser history, carefully word every text like it was a press release. She told me the Savannah trip was a last-minute investor conference she had to attend. Claimed she might even skip the spa night because of how packed the schedule looked. She even offered to bring me back some locally roasted coffee beans, like that would make the lie easier to swallow. I told her I'd miss her. She smiled and said it's just for the weekend. The night before she was set to leave, I cooked her favorite dinner, grilled salmon with garlic, mashed potatoes, and roasted carrots. She was surprised, even touched. This is so sweet, she said, sipping her wine. I smiled. Just felt like doing something nice. We ate. Talked about meaningless things. I asked questions like I cared. She answered like nothing was wrong. The wine softened her. She relaxed. Her guard dropped. After dinner, she cleared the table while I told her I'd be in the living room. She washed the dishes while humming some pop song I didn't recognize. When she finished, she walked into the room, towel drying her hands. I patted the couch next to me. Can we talk? She paused. The words must have hit her weird because I saw it, the flicker of concern in her eyes. But she sat down anyway, tucking one leg under her. Of course. What's up? I reached over and picked up a folder I had hidden beneath a pillow. Jake's folder. Her folder. I placed it on the coffee table and looked her dead in the eye. Is there anything you want to tell me? Her entire body stiffened. She stared at the folder like it might explode. What is that? She asked, her voice quieter than usual. You tell me, I said, still calm. She reached for it with trembling fingers. Opened it. Her eyes scanned the first page, hotel bookings. Then flight confirmations. Then the photos. When she saw the first image, her and Mark walking through a hotel lobby in Denver, her face drained of color. She kept flipping. Santa Fe. Dallas. All the way to Savannah. Adam, she started, her voice cracking. I held up a hand. Please don't say it's not what it looks like. Don't insult either of us. She swallowed hard. Her lips parted again, but no words came. Only a sob. I saw the messages, I continued. The photos. The card in your suitcase. The lingerie. The lies. I know everything. She covered her mouth with both hands, tears spilling over. Her shoulders trembled. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. It got out of control. No, I said. It didn't get out of control. You chose this. Over and over. She shook her head violently. No. I was lonely. You were always working. We stopped talking. I didn't know how to tell you I wasn't happy. And so the solution was to sleep with someone else? I said, voice rising. To lie to my face every day? She crumbled, then folding over herself like she might disappear. I messed up. I know I did. But it wasn't real, Adam. I didn't love him. You didn't have to love him, I said bitterly. You just had to respect me enough not to destroy what we built. She stood up and started pacing, hands in her hair. I swear it wasn't supposed to be like this. It started with one dinner, and then I couldn't stop. It was like I became a different person. You did, I said. You became someone who could look me in the eye while planning a weekend getaway with another man. I wanted to stop, she sobbed. I tried. But you didn't, I said. You chose him. Over and over. She stopped pacing and turned toward me. Her face was red, blotchy, raw. Please, Adam. Don't throw this away. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said. This isn't a crack. It's a collapse. I'll end it. I'll block him. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. I stood up, looked her square in the face. It's already over. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. She gasped like I had slapped her. No, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, don't. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm just protecting myself now. She fell to her knees on the carpet, sobbing. Please. Please don't give up on us. I didn't move. Because I already had. I trusted you, I said quietly. And you made a fool out of me. I'm done. The room was quiet except for her crying. Even Cooper, curled up in his dog bed in the corner, lifted his head, sensing something wasn't right. I turned and walked toward the bedroom. Where are you going? She cried. To sleep. Alone. I shut the door behind me, locked it, and slid down to the floor, back against the wood. I could still hear her sobbing through the door, whispering my name like it was a lifeline. But I didn't answer. And I didn't cry. Because in that moment, something I never thought possible had happened. I had stopped loving her. The next morning, I packed a bag and checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. It smelled faintly of bleach and regret, but it had a lock, a quiet hallway, and most importantly, distance. From Emma. From the wreckage. That same afternoon, I met with a divorce attorney. I handed him the folder Jake had given me along with a summary of everything I'd seen, heard, and uncovered. He barely blinked as he flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. With this, he said, you won't have any trouble. It'll go through fast and in your favor. I nodded, feeling a weird sort of relief. It wasn't joy. Not yet. But it was the first time in weeks I felt like something was solid beneath my feet. Emma tried to call that night. I let it ring. The next day, she texted that she was so sorry and still in shock and ready to fight for us. I didn't reply. 2 days later, her world started to fall apart. Apparently, Mark's wife had found out. Somehow, maybe through Jake, maybe on her own, she got her hands on the messages. *TS of Emma's texts, her selfies, her excuses about me being a burden, were now floating around their social circle. She didn't just lose our marriage. She lost her reputation, her neat, perfect image, her shield. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel the need. I had already moved on, at least emotionally. What happened to her from here wasn't my responsibility anymore. She made her choices, and I had made mine. A few months passed. In that time, I focused on building something that had nothing to do with her. I hit the gym again, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen since before the mess. Got a new job at a tech startup in Austin. Something small but full of potential. Felt like starting from zero, but in the best way. One Saturday, I walked into a local coffee shop just after a rainstorm. I wasn't expecting anything special, just caffeine and maybe a quiet corner to read. But as I stood in line, the woman in front of me dropped her laptop bag. It hit the floor with a soft thud, the zipper bursting open, papers scattering. I bent down to help her. Our eyes met briefly. She smiled. Thanks. Total mess. Right? I laughed. Could have fooled me. Looks like you've done this before. Her name was Casey. We talked while we waited for our drinks, then sat near the window when we realized we weren't quite ready to stop. That first conversation turned into an hour, then 2. By the time I walked her to her car, we were both smiling like idiots. We exchanged numbers. I watched her drive away, and I realized something simple but profound. I wasn't broken. Not anymore. The betrayal, the lies, the pain. It all still happened. But it didn't define me. It didn't own me. And maybe, just maybe, the destruction Emma left in her wake was never meant to be the ending. Maybe it was just the beginning of something new. Of freedom. Of peace. Of hope. And that's everything. Because sometimes the worst things that happen to us are just the cracks where the light gets in.